Thanks everybody for joining. We wanted to say welcome and appreciate you taking the time out of your day and good morning and good afternoon and good evening to those. I think we've got everybody in each of those time zones. So thanks for taking time out of your day. I'm Joe Servance and I lead the U.S. organization for Cleverciti. And, I've, for those that you may not be aware, or familiar with Cleverciti, we deliver comprehensive solutions that connect mobility demand with parking supply. And we do that through IoT AI platform with a platform of sensors, signs, apps, an open integration platform, and of course, data. Today, my job's actually pretty easy. I get to take it easy and just kind of introduce this great panel of experts that we have pulled together for you. First, I get to introduce Itay Deong, Global Head of Smart Cities for Itron. Itay comes from a long background of both business development and product development. That's obviously a great combination. And we're really pleased to have Itay and Itron as a partner and supporting us today on the webinar. Thank you very much, Itay. And just for real quick, for those that may not be fully familiar with Itron, they deliver innovative utility solutions to over 8,000 cities globally. Today, though, we're really going to focus in on their smart cities area department and really dive into the street light and focus on what the power of that street light and what it can bring to smart cities and smart parking. Itay, do you want to say just a quick hello?
Thank you very much, Joe. I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled to be a partner of Cleverciti. And I wanted to thank you for having me in this webinar with you. It's really essential when you think about Itron, that is a leader in management of energy and water and services, utilities and cities around the world. You mentioned 8,000 customers around the world in over 100 countries. So truly a global operation. So we're bringing a lot of that expertise into the transformation of cities in the domain that we call the smart cities domain, and how important the smart parking domain is in this transformation. And it's really a thrilling opportunity for communities to really improve their quality of life and in such an important thing. So thank you very much again for having me today.
Thanks, Itay. I really appreciate you being here. We also have with us our founder, CEO, passionate leader, and visionary, Thomas Hohenacker. Thomas, you want to say hi?
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, I've been focusing on parking during the last 10 years and had the pleasure to spend quite some time in the Silicon Valley 2 years ago. And, I'm very pleased that we are partnering with Itron in the Silicon Valley as well. And you will see in the next 60 minutes why we are so passionate about on-street parking and why we believe it is such a major driver for smart cities and so necessary to solve this issue that we're all driving around in circles based on this medieval system called luck. And I think we can do much better by providing data from the streetlights, and we'll show you how we do that.
Great. Thanks, Thomas. We also have with us our COO from Cleverciti, David Parker. David and I started together with Cleverciti about 1.5 years ago. And David brings just a wealth of experience in taking successful small businesses and scaling them into bigger, better operations. And I've enjoyed the last 1.5 years and look forward to many more with this group. And David, you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here and really happy to be covering this topic today. And I spent the last 15 years building automotive companies and getting more cars onto the streets. And now my mission is all about getting cars off the streets, parked, and reducing the emissions and climate impact and quality of life challenges that all this traffic congestion creates. So we are all really excited to get going. So let's start.
Sounds good. Just wanted to tell the later entries that we appreciate them joining. If everybody will, if they have any questions, please post them in the chat box. We're going to hold about 15, 20 minutes at the end of the presentation to try to get to all those questions. With that, I'll turn it over to Thomas. Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you, Joe. Well, you've seen our panelists, and we're really pleased to be partnering with Itron because they are, of course, a gigantic door opener to the smart city environment. And we really focus very much on offering extraordinary service to drivers, minimizing search traffic and emissions, and making sure that your assets can generate the maximum value. And we'll show you how we do that. I'll let Itai open for, as the door opener to the smart city.
Thank you very much, Thomas. In order to truly understand what it is, smart cities, we have to start from first, who is it for? And really this is for people, for us, for the communities, for the citizens that the cities serve. And cities are under tremendous pressure these days. And of course, the COVID pandemic is even adding on top of that. But it was already quite difficult before, as urbanization is at all-time high and continues to be very strong around the world. All these things the challenges that cities face is quite interesting to see how global they are. This is not just a one area's issue alone, and so we could think about those challenges as falling under three categories, and those are the environmental challenges, the social challenges of how to build a just and equitable society, and while improving the quality of life of the society in which we live, and the third pillar is really how to do all that while improving the economical structure and enhancing the viability of the community and all the services that it needs to get. In order to provide all these benefits, really the adoption of technology is central to this, but it's really important for us at Itron, and I believe it's the same for Cleverciti, to really start from this objective of how our solutions, how our technology is directly helping generate those benefits across the environmental, social, and economical dimension. To do that, at Itron, we focus in 4 domains. We focus on the city's infrastructure. How do we make it more resilient and sustainable? We focus on transportation systems to make them smarter. We focus on public safety and security, and finally, digital services. You'll hear today from Cleverciti how their solutions fit into actually many of these categories. So one use case can really help in many of these categories. It's not just each use case falls under one specific categories. But when you have to deal with so many categories, you cannot be an expert in all of these. And that's why for us at Itron, the pillar of our strategy is to partner and surround ourselves with the best in each domain and in each category that we strive to deliver a solution for in our portfolio. And this common portfolio comes in a way that is integrated and is harmonious and is easy for cities to adopt and to ingest in order to create that digital transformation, because it is never an easy experience. And the way we do it is that we do an integration that goes across 2 things. Number one, leverage a multi-application network in terms of optimizing the cost and the structure for how to get the data from all these different use cases to the city and to the citizen. And the second, of course, very important integration point is at the data level itself. And we'll see how all these examples specifically happen between Itron and Cleverciti later on in the presentation.
Thank you, Itai. So we'll show you in this webinar how you can make your streetlights sort of rise above and become the stars of the city, because streetlights are basically everywhere. In the US alone, we have about 30 million streetlights in the on-street environment, and they have an extraordinary strategic importance because they really overlook very, very essential and very valuable properties of your cities. So they overlook the traffic lanes and the sidewalks. I mean, we're going to focus very much on parking and the curb, but also all surface parking spaces, delivery and drop-off zones, e-charging stations, and of course also areas where parking is not allowed. So we'll show you how you can turn the streetlights into a revenue generator, but also into a tool to really guide your citizens and increase quality of life in a dramatic way. I mean, parking search has an enormous cost to society. At the moment, every single year, we waste about 6.8 billion hours in looking for a parking space. And as I said at the beginning, this is based on the fact that it's mostly based on luck, or some people have karma. And instead of basing it on intelligent data, like in other businesses. And that leads to an enormous emission of CO2 and a lot of dollars lost on the way. And according to all the recent studies and also older studies, about 30% of the entire traffic in our cities is only looking for a parking space. And that can change dramatically with intelligent guidance, which will show you how that works.
So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about parking. And we just talked about streetlights and the power of a streetlight. And so hopefully all of you can see this poll. I see people are already voting here. But how much revenue potential do we think is actually available to be captured underneath each lamppost in a city? And some of you, oh, this is cool. This is like the U.S. election, actually. One category slipped in the lead, and then another one slipping. So. Very good. So it seems like we're mostly tied. This is also partly a test to see who read the invitation materials. So it looks like the leader is, I think we can share the results. The leader is $25,000 to $50,000. And the right answer is actually $50,000 to $200,000. And we're gonna, so there's really this enormous potential that's sitting underneath each lamppost, and we're gonna talk a little bit about how that parking story can be solved. And so just to sort of take a look at parking for a second, think about the user journey. So here I am, I want to go visit the downtown area, I want to shop, and maybe I want to go out to dinner, and so I'm going to spend some money downtown. Before I leave home, I might want to figure out, where can I go? Which entrance to the city should I take? Which parking garage or which on-street area should I use? And so, you'd want to have a website or an app that you can just quickly check and say, is there space available at my destination? You might also decide to not drive at all and take the train because the parking is too full. And actually, that would be the best option because it's best for the environment. As you approach the destination, assuming you've now chosen to take your car, now you're sort of at the edge of the city, and you're going to want to easily find out, what are the current parking options available. So, the garages, the streets, the surface lots, which direction should I turn at the main entrance to the city? And then as I get closer in, and I'm now sort of right near my destination, I want to find the right space. And so there, again, you want to be guided really turn by turn at every decision point to find the space that's available and near your destination. And then finally, once you've found that space, of course, you want to be able to easily pay for it, whether that's with your phone or a different device. And so we really solve this problem, and we do that through two steps. Really, one is building an accurate data layer of the whole city to be able to say which spaces are available, which ones are occupied. We do that with our sensors, and also we have a card which can act as a permit or automated payment device. And then once we have this data layer built across the city of where the parking is, we can then use our guidance technologies to solve all those guidance challenges we just talked about. So, whether that's an app or a website or a big sign at the entrance to the city, or a Cirque, which is this this neat device that's patented that really wraps right around a street light and fits right into the streetscape. So really, at every point throughout your journey, you can be guided. So just to give you an example, so this picture on the right is a city which we'll actually show a demo of later. But so effectively, at every entrance to the city from the main ring road around it, there's a sign, and that sign is updated in real time with the garage availability, the on-street availability, and the surface lot availability. And so you can combine all that data into one place and then really push it out to all the places where it's needed. And you can see, like, at the other picture on here is a picture of this in Dubai, right along the main Sheikh Zayed Road, which is really the main street of Dubai. And then once you get closer into the city, you now have the Cirque, which I mentioned earlier, that really wraps right around the lamppost. It fits right into the existing streetscape, and it communicates both the direction to turn, but can also have other data on it, like noise levels, emissions, emergency messages, reminder to wear a mask, that sort of thing. And because all of this signage is digital, it can always be updated as needed. So imagine you have an event, a major festival in the city, and as everyone's arriving, you have one guidance plan to get everyone in, and then at the end of the event, you want to have a guidance plan to get everyone out. And sometimes those plans are different. And so by having dynamic signs, you can actually change them really at any moment to send you in the right direction.
So of course, it all starts with generating the data, and it's very important that the data is reliable, because we want to convince people that they can really trust it, so that they can change their behavior and really believe that when we say that the inner city is occupied, that they do go to a garage. And so what our sensors basically can monitor 25 to 100 spaces per single sensor from the lamppost. So it's very, very efficient. It's all based on artificial intelligence and edge processing, deep learning. And we can basically connect via Wi-Fi, or we connect via the Itron mesh network or LTE or other things. We've actually generated the world's largest library of AI, and all our sensors basically learn from each other. So the sensor from Banff in the snow learns from the sensor in Dubai or from Australia. And so we've reached a very, very high proven reliability, which has been acknowledged also not only by the highest German authorities, but also by others. And the uniqueness of the sensor is also that it works for normal parking bays, but also for all unmarked spaces. So what we call floating spaces. And this is important because a lot of modern cities have stopped doing single bays and don't have individual meters anymore, but really want to be modern cities where even smaller cars can take 2 spaces, for instance. So that's a very important point. And we're also providing battery solutions, because some cities don't have 24/7 power at the lamppost. So the sensors are powered during the day through the battery. The battery is actually integrated and is being recharged during the nighttime. So David is going to explain the architecture.
Yeah, so if you think about, so there's all these components that we're pulling data in from garages, mobility hubs, meters of, multi-space meters where all the payment data exists, all the rest of the mobility ecosystem, that all gets pulled into the cloud. And then as the city or the parking department, you have this single pane of glass, the cockpit, that gives you this total view of what's going on in your city. So every space that's being used, how it's being used, and how that's shifting over time. And then, of course, that's all managed and monitored 24/7, so that just like any other modern solution as a service, you don't have to worry about how the system works or which sensor is offline. You have a team of people to manage that for you. And that's all, of course, built on this IoT layer of the sensors and circuits and signs. And then we connect all that through LTE or through the Itron mesh network, et cetera.
So we currently have a global footprint in 20 countries and about 200 locations. We are the market leader, for instance, in the UK with 120 train stations in the southern part of England and the West Midlands. But from all these locations, we just want to focus on 3 and show you some live examples. And we would like to start with the location we are working on together with Itron, because it's a great example how Itron, Cleverciti, and a major utility actually work together. And we'll, of course, come to all the revenue opportunities also in a second, because I already see the first questions coming in that directions. And we'll show you that. But Ita, I'll let you start with that and explain what we're doing in San Antonio, and then I'll explain the details.
Thank you, Thomas. So this is an extremely interesting collaboration, and frankly, this is a great example for how really things need to happen, and in this case, a collaboration between the private sector, the city itself, and the utility serving that community, leveraging the assets from the utility to collaborate with the city to, in this case, use the streetlights to not just add smart streetlight technology from Itron, but add many other types of smart city sensors. And specifically here, we're seeing the deployment of the Cleverciti smart parking sensors and solution, including the Cirque 360 displays in a very busy downtown area in the city of San Antonio. Specifically in Market Street, and you can see the marking of the sensors on the streetlights and how many spots each sensor is specifically covering. Installation of those sensors and the Cirques, the displays is already taken place, and now they are in the process of that phase of learning. You mentioned before the artificial intelligence, right? In terms of how this behaves and as they become fully operational. Again, I think what is extremely interesting to demonstrate here is that we're leveraging multiple smart city applications to really create a holistic solution for the city of San Antonio. And this is very, very visible for the community, right? You think about technology deployed in such a busy street in downtown San Antonio, and we're hearing an amazing feedback from the city so far on reception and acceptance of the technology.
This is actually a typical example where you see that there is no bay marking. So here we actually measure the remaining space. We measure the size of the car. We measure whether that space is still big enough to fit another car. And you see also that at the beginning of the street, there is the guidance sign. So you know if that street is full, you can already turn left or turn right. And we'll show you more examples how that turn-by-turn guidance actually works. And of course, our data is also integrated into the central management system of Itron, the SLV, which contains a wealth of data under one single pane of glass, which is very important for the city. I want to show you an example in Germany, how we're working with the utility. This is the city of Cologne. The city of Cologne has about 1.1 million inhabitants. And the local utilities are 80% owned by the city. And it operates over 100,000 lampposts in the city. They own and operate that. Their mission is very clear. They want to be climate neutral in energy, water, and heating by 2040. And of course, providing a smart parking is a very important part of that mission statement, because they want to achieve a number of things in the city with smart parking. They want to guide people, of course, in an intelligent way so they can park fast. They want to show them the closest parking space where that is available. And of course, reduce the stress, reduce the traffic in the city, which leads to less emissions, less noise levels for the residents, and ultimately increases the quality of life, increases parking revenue, and we'll show you how. And they can license that data also to third parties. So it's a wealth of benefit that they're creating with a system like that. So here you see the inner city. This is an inner city part of Cologne, very, very busy, lots of retailers, shopping streets, and so on. And you see the uniqueness of the system, that actually the sensor, which generates the data, and the display that distributes the data is on one lamppost, actually on lots of lampposts around the city, obviously. So at each critical point where you have to make a decision as a driver, do I go left or right or straight, you get precise information where to go. So you know exactly when you come to an intersection, well, I don't have to go left because there are 0 spaces available. I'm going to go straight. And that, of course, is the first time that somebody who really is driving around in the inner city is not driving around blindly around the block anymore, but he has really viable information and can immediately go to the next space. And of course, we're also providing an app. The app provides complete guidance to the free spaces. You can select the space you want to go to. There is also a guidance to loading areas. There's a guidance to handicapped spaces. It gives you an overview with a map right away, how many spaces are still available. And you can see where they are. You can select certain hotspots, like you can say, I want a coffee shop, or I want to go to the shopping mall or something like that, or to the church here, or to the bank, and it guides you directly to the bank. And then once you're there at the nearest parking area, you can automatically link to your preferred mobile payment operator. So a very, very convenient way to go. And just one other example before I go into a live cockpit. This is another example of a city. This is one of the busiest parking spaces in a small city like that. That city has 30,000 inhabitants, and they all come together to go shopping, to go to the farmer's market, and so on. So the city center is extremely busy, has about 5,000 parking events per day. And here we monitor the whole inner city from one single lamppost, one single central lamppost here in the image. And every sensor monitors about 50 spaces. So very, very accurate, and even very accurate in winter. In winter, this area is covered with snow. So you don't see the markings, the bay markings anymore on that surface. It looks quite chaotic at times, which you don't expect from Germans, but that's the way it is. And the sensor nevertheless identifies that car in that specific area, no matter where it stands. Here again, we do the complete guidance from A to Z. From entering the city to the final steps where you know in which aisle there's still a free space available. So you don't have to circle around it anymore. You can really go to the space right away. And actually the payment went up considerably because offering that service, because people don't lose 15 or 20 minutes circling around, but can go straight to their space, and they reward the city by a much higher compliance. So I'm going to show you a live example. So I have to stop this for a moment and just go to a different one and go to the live website. Let's see where that is. So here you can see, is it already visible?
Yes.
Okay, so here you see, this is the city we just talked about. And you see in the city center, the available parking spaces. Obviously here it's already at night, so it's not so busy anymore. You see all the Cirques in the individual aisles, and you see the central sign at the beginning. So this is a live feedback from that signage. So from the cockpit, you can monitor all the signs. You can change the templates. You can change the brightness at any time, although the brightness is also monitored directly through sensors. And so all the data is combined. And when you zoom out a little bit, you see all your signage at these critical entry points, and you can really monitor all your signs and what they're doing and what they're showing. The city can change the messages on the sign. They have big festivals and theater festivals, and you can interactively change all these displays. And I'll show you another example where we just went, which is the city of Cologne. Here you see very well all these parking spaces. That city is still very, very busy. And so you can see basically the arrival time, how long somebody has stayed, all in these floating spaces. And then you see basically all the signage on the Cirque. How many spaces are left. You can change the templates. You can say wear a mask. You can display emergency messages, train info, stock market, whatever the city wants, and you can again control all the features of the signage. So this just gives you a little glimpse into a live cockpit. Obviously, there's a wealth of data that comes out of that cockpit, from historical analytics to now we are even monitoring the parking search traffic and can define that. So many things. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Let's see where we are. Here we are.
And actually, while we're switching back, I'm going to launch our other poll here. So now we promised to talk about revenue, and we already have a couple questions about revenue. And I think it'd be great before we do that to get everyone's view on how much revenue is being lost each year due to poor service. And actually, one of the questions was about specifically that. So if we're improving, clearly we're improving quality of life, but how do we actually grow revenues by offering better service? It looks like we've got about half of our responses in. I'm going to cut you off there.
25 to 50% is the winner with 45%, and then 50 to 75 with 23%, and 10 to 25% with 29%. So the winner is around 50%, I would say.
So let's talk about the real story behind parking revenue.
Yeah, so each sensor on the streetlight manages a very high potential annual revenue. In average, a parking space should have a revenue of about $5,000 to $10,000 per year, depending how many hours, and the city charges a fee and on the price of the parking space per hour. So price can vary between $1 and $3 or sometimes $6. So that is the difference. So each sensor manages a very high potential revenue under the lamppost, but in reality, only a part of that revenue is being captured. And a lot of the revenue is lost due to people not willing to pay. They sort of extend their luck and say, well, maybe I'm lucky. I'm not going to get a ticket. There is no service really connected to it. Drivers are frustrated. They are in a hurry. They've already looked for 15 or 20 minutes. And so surprisingly, in many European cities, for instance, the compliance we found is sometimes only 15 or 25%, whereas in the US, it's more an average of 50%. So there's still a very, very considerable revenue being lost. Each year, millions and millions are being lost virtually on the street, under the street light. And so we really help to capture that data, capture that that revenue. And one way we're doing it is we are combining the occupancy to get with the payment systems. So we show in 5-minute increments what is the payment rate and what is the occupancy rate over the whole day. And we show for individual spaces, when does the parking fee expire, when has the car arrived. And we can also monitor that in loading zones. So for instance, when there's a car at a fire hydrant, we can give the city a message. So all of a sudden, the city is like a hotel owner who knows the occupancy of each individual room and who knows exactly that each individual room is actually paid for. And a lot of cities were really surprised for the first time when they saw how low actually the compliance was. Sometimes they thought, well, a lot of people are actually paying, but when they found the real data, it was quite amazing. Here in this city, we have a 46% average, for instance, a payment rate. So there's still a lot that can be captured. And so what's the return on investment? And I'll let David explain that.
Yeah, so if you think about, so first of all, increasing parking revenues with perfect guidance. So imagine, you're arriving at a place and you get terrible service. Are you going to pay for that terrible service? Probably not. Or at least you don't want to give as much of a tip or something to the waiter. But in this case, if we're able to deliver extraordinary service, then people are impressed by that. They're happy with the experience, and they're then more willing to pay. And while that sounds great, it actually materializes into real numbers. And so we see, of course, varies city to city, but we see 10 to 20% or more increase in payment just due to offering this great service. And the cost of the solution is actually usually only 2 or 3% of the revenue that's generated from the spaces. So you really only need to increase the revenue by 2 or 3% in order to get an ROI, and yet we're seeing 10 or 20% or more increases. And that's just the parking revenues. And if you take it to the next level, then over on the right here, you can see the other benefits. So if you imagine what do people do if they take the 10 to 15 minutes that they would have been searching for a parking space, and now they have that time available to do something else. Well, they're downtown in the city. There's lots of great shops and boutiques and restaurants nearby. And so what we find is that they actually end up spending money in the city. So we're growing the parking revenue, but we're also growing the revenue in local businesses. And that's much, much larger of a number. So in this example with 5,000 spaces, there's 1.5 or 3 million of additional parking revenue potential. But there's actually 150 million of potential revenue to the local economy. And that comes back in the form of rooms and meals taxes, or in terms of local option taxes, or any other sort of benefits. And of course, also the trickle-down effects to payrolls and livelihood of the city. So at the end of the day, you're sort of delivering an amazing improvement in service. You're cutting congestion, you're cutting emissions, you're increasing parking revenues, and you're helping local businesses. It all sounds too good to be true, but somehow it is, and it's just such an amazing story to work with cities and deliver that sort of result. And the last thing that we wanted to talk about here was around how do you actually fund this sort of solution. And so the traditional model is you buy a bunch of hardware and you install it, and then hardware like this is, imagine how often your iPhone gets replaced. Hardware like this is always evolving, and so there's software upgrades and potentially hardware upgrades. And so with a lot of solutions like this, it can be very expensive long term. And so we've really pioneered in our industry this solution as a service model. So instead of buying hardware, you actually can subscribe to this service, which includes hardware. It includes all of the 24/7 operations and maintenance, and it's effectively priced as a fee per space. So it's simple, it's manageable, so you can and predictable, so you know how to budget for it, and it ensures that really we're responsible for delivering the benefits to the city, rather than buying some hardware and hoping that it will do what we promise. So no surprises, and just positive benefits for the citizens. And as we're approaching the end, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, David.
I was just saying, as we're approaching the end here, there's a Q&A button at the bottom, and some of you have found it. If you click on that Q&A button, you can pop some questions in there, and we'll certainly respond to those as we go through.
Itai can also add to that. I think that Itron offers quite amazing solutions for many systems that are, living on the lamppost. So, Itai, do you want to say something to that?
That's right. I think that we've seen budgets being sometimes a real barrier for cities that want to have decided to adopt technology and are convinced, but don't necessarily find the mechanisms to finance that adoption. And for that particular reason, we have created a smart city financing program that brings together a lot of different financing partners for those that require different types of help, and there's many different models that can adapt very well to the different needs of different cities, and some would love to capitalize on the investment of the assets, and we can enable that to happen, and other would prefer the solution as a service, and maybe they can get the preferred payment terms or things like that from those financing partners. So combining those capabilities together can be a great benefit for the city.
Thank you, Itai. So we are very happy, that we can contribute to the most important thing, which is at the end of the day, quality of life. And we believe that smart lighting and smart parking, fit perfectly together. And at the end, it's not about data, it's not about displays, it's not about technology. It's all about how do we feel in the city, how do we like to live in the city. It's really all about quality of life, and we are very, very happy that we can contribute to that. So thank you very much. I hand over to Joe, because we have 15 minutes left for questions, and very happy to answer that from all of us.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, David, and thanks, Itai. I appreciate everything you guys have done. I think we've answered some of these, but we have a question from Steve DeStefano. Can the parking spot locator be smart enough to select the spot and block it from others seeing? So I'll take a first stab, and you guys can add some color. Yes, the system can hide a spot that could be selected and could be hidden, but these are public parking spaces. So the challenge, and we've been trying to come up with potential solutions, is how do you reserve? That sounds like a reservation. So you block the spot, you reserve the spot, and it's still there when you get there. So the challenge is making sure that no one parks, even though you hide the spot, somebody driving by doesn't take the spot. Mm-hmm. Steve, I think
there's some, depending on how the question is worded, we have a number of customers that have things like weekly farmers markets or construction zones or cafes that get deployed because of COVID in the parking spaces. And so a lot of the times you need to sort of schedule or plan, is this space actually a space, or is it being used for something else? And so you can kind of build in that plan to say every Thursday from 2 to 5 there's a farmer's market in these 12 spaces.
Very good. Right. Thanks, David. The next question, I get that this is also from Steve. I get that this is all improving quality of life, no question. But what is the revenue opportunity? Who pays for the services?
Well, I hope we answered that. And, of course, there are multiple revenue streams that are coming in. There are direct ones, there are indirect ones. The system basically pays for itself by the parking revenue increase and by, all that parking revenue captured, but that's really just one part of it. And Steve, maybe I answer that right away as well. He asked, who is the operator? Well, that can be the utility, like we are working directly with utilities like Itron as well. And so the utility is the operator, and they actually enter into a new business really, which is licensing data and licensing services from the lampposts that they own. So it's a great new opportunity for them, not just selling electricity, but more, the future gold, which is data. And but I guess, Itai, you can say a lot more about that because you are working very, very closely with the utilities.
We've seen an interest from both utilities and cities to enable the other party to manage this, but this really depends on the size of the city many times, and their internal capabilities and how they're structured. So there are small towns that maybe would prefer the bigger utility to provide them this complete solution as a service, and others that have their own department of transportation that typically would also manage their parking and would very much like to own that and manage it themselves. So I think it's really what I would like to mark is the flexibility from our perspective to enable whoever is the party that is defined as the one that would manage this to do it, even if it is for someone else.
Thank you, Itai. I also see the question that about the integration with other systems. Of course, we integrate with all other systems, whether it's mobile payment or other LED display manufacturers or third-party devices, including mobile payment and, of course, also enforcement solutions. I don't know. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not going too fast, but we're running out of time.
Just going to add to that, Thomas. From the integration standpoint. So with the integrations with multi-space meters, single space meters, or payment, then we know the exact time a vehicle is parked and when it leaves. And with that integration with the payment provider, we can monitor no pays and overstays as well, which helps with compliance actually, because people know they can't get away with it. So we increase compliance, but also help with automated guided enforcement.
There's also the question, how many spaces can a sensor monitor? And so each sensor can monitor 50 or even 100 spaces. In a typical city environment, it can be between 12 and 30 spaces, sometimes a bit more, and it depends on the height of the lamppost. And of course, anything that is under that lamppost can be managed and monitored. That includes no parking zones, fire hydrants, loading zones, and of course, curb management is a very important part of what we're doing in monitoring delivery trucks, Uber Eats, and so on and so on. And as you know, curb management is the big coming hype because we will have more and more delivery vehicles in our cities, so we need to manage them properly. And since we are monitoring spaces that are unmarked, we are perfectly equipped to provide great curb management solutions.
There's another question in here about sort of how do you realize savings for enforcement. And so first, I think it's important that our whole mentality is around providing great service to the consumer, to the driver, so that enforcement is unnecessary, so that these people will want to pay for parking because when they arrive there, they had an amazing experience. Of course, once they're there, if they have failed to pay, then as we mentioned earlier, we have integrations both with mobile payment providers and multi-space meters like T2, but we also can then integrate with the enforcement system itself, so we can push an event to the enforcement system and sort of guide the enforcement people. So that, of course, optimizes the time of the enforcement people. So I think you'll find that you need a lot less enforcement people overall to achieve much higher compliance and also much higher satisfaction in the citizenry, the parkers.
Any other questions?
I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about the ability to bring that information to the hands of the citizen, not just in the displays, but also in the applications. A lot of the cities that we work with, both Itron and Cleverciti, already may have an application that their citizens are using, and it's very easy to integrate the Cleverciti parking data from the cockpit into those applications that they're using. I believe, Thomas David, that you have some examples of that as well. And in the case that the city does not have such an application, there's an application that they can use from Cleverciti that really brings this information to the palm of each citizen, as we saw in the journey, as they prepare and as they approach. So some will be looking at their phones, other will be looking at the displays, and the combination of the two really makes it a very pragmatic solution that at the end of the day makes the difference between a solution that is just technical and a solution that actually works.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we see a lot of solutions where so an app will be deployed, but that app is a standalone app that's not really used for any other purpose. And so in a lot of cases, we work with cities to integrate our parking functionality into the existing city app that the citizens are using for every other service. And then, of course, the data is available to many more people. So we do there's a lot of integration work to be done with apps, with websites. Pushing another use case that's really important is when you're commuting every day and you need to use a park and ride, like a parking space at a train station. You can be on the same website where you're checking train arrival times and are the trains late today. Right below that, you can see the parking availability at the park and ride or at the station where you are planning to park. And so that's the sort of solution that we're delivering in the UK. And it's really valuable for the consumer, because they not only are they knowing, should I take the train today, but they're also helping to decide. They might have 2 stations they can go to, and now they can decide up front which station should I go to that has more availability right now, so that I increase my chances of having a space free when I get there.
Very good.
Yeah, we really believe in great service, and we are, of course, very, very happy that we can contribute service to parking, because it's sort of one of the last domains where service is not really there yet in a lot of cases, and that leads to that low compliance. There's no other business that I know of or have ever met where the discrepancy between what people actually should pay for a great piece of real estate, great piece of property, for renting a space in the middle of the city, and they're not paying for it. So I think it's time to change that, and to change the perception that these spaces are really valuable, and that it's absolutely normal to pay for parking. And of course, the city can do lots of wonderful things with that money. It's not stealing the money from people's pockets, but is actually turning that money into public services, into trees, into public transport, and many other things. So, by paying for parking, people can contribute also to the growth of the city and making the cities more livable. And we really believe that that's the time now to do that and to be part of that new movement.
Yes. So it's been a real pleasure to be with all of you and with our great panelists here. And it looks like we've exhausted all the questions. And as anyone comes up, feel free, of course, to get in touch with any of us. I think we had a slide there at the end with our contact details, and we'll also be sharing the recording so that you can access this. But in the meantime, feel free to take a screenshot if you want to get in touch with anyone. And we really look forward to the dialogue and continuing more of these sessions, because we have some great showcases of client stories coming up over the coming months, and look forward to sharing all of that with you.
Thank you, everyone.
So thank you very much.
We'll give you back about 3 minutes of your day, which I know is valuable. So enjoy it. And thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.